Viewers of Daddy's Game Time, check it out. Tune in.
Hello, Francisco here from Daddy's Game Time. Today I have the pleasure of being here with Miss Lisle Wilkerson.
Hi.
Is that right? Did I say it
Yes,
correctly?
you said it right.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes, high five for you for saying it correctly.
Awesome. So we are at Fanime 2016.
Yes.
And obviously it's a convention about anime. But I was very excited to talk to you because I'm not a big fan of anime, I have to be honest. I don't really know much about anime other than what's popular, like the Dragon Balls and then Naruto and all of that, that's more mainstream. But I did a little research on you, and you worked on a video game that it's very dear to me, that it was so good when I played it that I couldn't believe how awesome it was.
Is this a guessing game? Do I have to guess which
See
game
if
it
you
was?
can guess which game I'm thinking about. Or
Fighting game.
it's kind of a fighting game. Yes, there's some fighting
Shenmue.
elements. Yes.
I knew
Oh my
it!
God. Yes.
Yes.
So you did the voice of the love interest in the second part. That's correct.
I did Shuing
That's
and
right.
Joy.
Okay, Joy. Joy
Yes.
is the one.
Okay, Joy is one.
Yeah.
Yes.
And basically, you did the Japanese dubbing of it. Is that correct, or?
No, I did English.
You only did the English
Yes,
one, okay.
yes.
So, because I think I read somewhere that you had
But I
done
did it in
Japanese.
Japan.
Oh, you did it in the
Yes.
Japan. That's probably what it was then.
Yeah.
Okay. And can you tell me a little bit about that experience when you were asked to do that?
Absolutely. So just a little bit about me, about my background. I grew up in Japan.
Okay.
So when I first started working for voice acting and doing video games was in Japan. So most of my work has been in Japan. So like with Tekken, Virtua Fighter, all those, Crazy Taxi,
Right.
those were all also recorded in
Okay.
Japan. And when I was asked to do the Shenmue series, it was actually an incredible experience because I worked a lot with Corey Marshall.
Right.
And a lot of times with video games, especially nowadays, you go in, you record for your character all alone, and you just go in the studio, read all your lines, and then you leave,
Right,
so you don't get any really connection or any synergy with other people that are in the game.
Right.
However, of course, because Yu Suzuki likes doing things very differently, with the whole process of making a video game, he's so much more into the whole process of it. So I got to work a lot with Corey. We did a lot of recording sessions together, also with Eric Kelso, who plays, I always forget his character, but Eric Kelso, and then also Paul Lucas I got to work a lot with. So a lot of we all kind of really established a really wonderful synergy working together. But it was very interesting. They were very particular about the voice as well. A lot of times when you go in to record for a character, even if you have a little bit of an off day where you might have a bit of a cold or something, with a lot of games, you still plow through it and then you make it happen.
Right.
But with Shenmue, I remember I was doing a Monday through Friday radio show in the morning, and then after that I would go to the Sega studios and I'd be recording, and my voice was off just a little bit. This is for Shuing. And I thought I would be okay. I was like, yeah, I've got this. Years of radio experience. I could totally get through with it. And they were like, Liso-san, go home. I'm like, oh, But very, 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 not, I don't want to say perfectionist, because that really isn't what it was, but it's just this world that he just takes a long time developing. And I think that's one of the reasons that so many people love Shenmue, love Yu Suzuki. And it's so funny because I have for 14 years had people asking, when is Shenmue 3 coming out? When is Shenmue 3 coming out? And I always tell them, I wish I knew anything, but at the end of the day, voice actors are kind of the, we're hired talent. We know nothing ever.
Exactly.
So, excuse me. So yeah, I mean, and when you think about it, and I'm sure you know that like a year ago with E3 and the Kickstarter that happened, I remember I had just finished doing an interpreting job. I got home and I had left my phone alone for maybe 5 minutes, and then I looked and there were all these messages. Oh my gosh, Shenmue Kickstarter! And I'm like, what? And yeah, it was just this incredible moment. And for me, of course, being a part of that project and just knowing like how many fans are just so, and how long they've been pushing to have like a Shenmue III, it was kind of an emotional moment, I just couldn't believe it. So.
To us, to my friend Leo here and I, we were really big fans with that game. I mean, I think it came out when we were still in college. And I remember part one, a lot of people made fun of it because of the voices, because they were so off. We're talking about Corey Marshall here. He voices Ryu, the main character. So he was very robotic in that first game. But I believe that's because that's how the Japanese actual dubbing was set in place, that he just had to go over it the same pace that one was already done. And I remember part two, for the Sega Dreamcast, it was only in Japanese originally. Later on when it came out in Xbox, that's when they did the English dubbing, and I guess that's when you came in.
Correct, yeah.
That was so much better.
Yeah.
Like, the dubbing had improved so greatly, and that's when you actually could see that Corey Marshall and yourself were really, really great actors.
Yeah.
So now with Shenmue 3, how involved are you in with that?
Well, excuse me. So there hasn't been any really announcement yet about, if we're going to be involved or not. Okay. However, I will say that I have done many panels with Corey and with Eric Kelso and also with Paul Lucas.
Okay.
We've done quite a few conventions. We've done panels together where we talk about Shenmue and everything. I'm very involved in the Shenmue community. Okay. And so I'm hoping that I will be involved in Shenmue 3. Because of course, I would love to, I
believe your character's coming back in a big way. So
yeah, I hope so. Because it was so much fun. So, and because I had 3 characters. So I had the Xu Ying, which was a little bit more kind of very, I don't want to say monotone, but she was quite even-keeled because that was her character. She was always, she wasn't very emotional. She didn't like to really express emotion that much. And so, and speaking of robotic, I used to get people emailing me all the time, like, why don't you put more emotion into it? And I would always tell them, I wanted to, but I was told,
that's how you do it.
Yeah. So this was the direction that was given to me. And it was actually very tough to do more kind of this even-keeled voice because I kept wanting to put a little bit more emotion into it. So Joy is much more similar to my character and also probably similar to my voice.
Right.
So for me, Joy was not a problem at all. And then Yuan, which I did, was another very interesting character because I remember the Japanese, the team coming up to me and saying, so Lisle-san, Yuan is actually transgender in Japan.
Wow.
But we, at that time, they were like, we don't really want to ruffle any feathers. America's obviously a big market for us. So we want to make it kind of a very, not androgynous, but, to where you don't really know what the character is.
Not putting it out there completely.
Yes, exactly.
Oh, wow.
So we worked on that voice for actually, I went into the studio, I did some samples, of a voice. I was like, what do you think about this? What do you think about this? And so finally, one voice that I did ended up being the Yuan. But I actually kind of based it on, at that time, I was really into Sex and the City.
Okay.
Watched it, loved that show. And Samantha, which is the one played by Kim Cattrall, like she's the character, said, "Darling, I don't really know," you know, and she talks like that, and so I kind of a little bit based that Yuan character and that voice came a little bit from the Kim Cattrall character, right. Samantha, but yeah. So as far as how much involvement, though, I will be doing in 3, I hope I will be very involved. I would love to be very involved, but fingers crossed.
Yeah, and all the programming and everything should be almost complete by now, from what I've been reading, because we contributed to the Kickstarter.
Yes.
So we get the news every so often. We got the village done. We got all these things going, and it's exciting because finally we get a result from that huge cliffhanger. It's like the longest cliffhanger we had to endure. So many years ago, I believe it was like 2001.
Yes, yeah.
Like, wow. Oh my God, that's such a joy, you know, no pun intended, to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
But you, of course, have done many other roles. Have you mentioned Crazy Taxi, and you've done Virtua Fighter as well. So what do you think about doing the difference between voicing video games and actual anime series?
So I haven't, excuse me, I haven't done that much in the way of anime, actually. I've done some stuff, but it has been more for, because I've done the bulk of my work in Japan, so it has been mostly for like more educational stuff. So I did something for Hello Kitty, for Sanrio, and it was a really big project for Sanrio. And I played not Hello Kitty, I played Batsmaru, the ugly penguin, or not ugly, I wouldn't say angry penguin. You know, he's always like, yeah. So I did that, and with that, I did it in English and Japanese. But I mean, I have done a lot of animation work. It's just not the Japanese anime, you know. So I haven't done much of that. I have done live action. So I've done, and I'm doing some stuff currently for something that I can't talk about. But yeah. So, and I think the big difference really is obviously timing your voice to the lip flap to when the, you know, and you do that sometimes in video games. But with me, because I would always do most of my work in Japan, a lot of times the game wasn't even finished yet. So I would just do it to kind of sketches or, you know, like basic graphics, but not too much, you know. So I think that's it. And then also obviously with anime, because it's a series, you know, you get a steady paycheck, which is great. But then also you get an opportunity to really explore a lot more with the character, you know, and with the storyline. Even though, of course, obviously, you get to do that with games as well, but with voicing for games, you only go in for one day. Whereas with anime, you go in, and then you go in the next week. So your character, the arc that happens with the character and everything changes. So you get to change kind of with your character. Yeah, so I think that would probably be one of the biggest differences. Yeah.
And living in Japan versus living here, what is the difference?
Oh gosh, so many differences. So I lived in Japan for over 30 years. So that's a very long time. Yeah, I have a huge list.
What would be like the thing that comes to your mind, like, oh my God, I couldn't believe I had to go through this while I was there?
Well, I think one thing obviously is the whole English. You know. So as a voice actor, I can't tell you how many times I've seen a script and I'm like,
and you have to say that.
This is not even English. What do I do with this? You know, so many times.
Wow.
But also, I think another difference, and this would be with the voice acting community. Well, no, I guess not, because even here in the States, voice acting community is a pretty tight-knit community.
Right.
And in Japan, it is as well. But I don't know, I guess, but there definitely is a difference between doing voice work in Japanese and then doing voice work in English. But yeah, I think one of the things, as far as things that I miss about Japan, because I get that question a lot, and one of the things I miss the most, I think, is the bakeries.
Really?
Yeah,
I would have thought you'd say sushi or something like that.
No, yeah, and that's another interesting, I remember when I moved to the States, because I live in Los Angeles, so I moved to LA, and it was so funny to me how everyone that I knew, they were like, oh, I'll have to take you out for sushi. I know a great place. I'm like, why are you taking me out for sushi? I come from years and years and years of sushi. Like, I don't understand what you guys are doing.
It's a misconception.
Yeah, and then it was so funny because when I finally said, okay, fine, they wore me down. So I'm like, okay, fine, let's go for sushi. And I just remember them being the rolls, right? It was like a place that only had rolls.
And that was it.
And I told them, I said, if you ever tell a Japanese that this is sushi, they will slap you upside the head because this is not sushi in Japan.
Exactly.
This is rolls, maki, and sushi, very different.
Yeah. Well, Lisle, it was a great pleasure talking to you.
Thank you, you too.
And I hope that Shenmue comes as a good project for you and
Me
it's available
too.
because we would love to see you there.